Hello coders, welcome to my channel. I'm David, your guide to mastering programming. Today's topic are loops. Let's say I want to print numbers from 1 to 10. From the knowledge you have learned until now, you would type something like this. Now, when I run this code, numbers from 1 to 10 will be printed. But what happens if I want to print, let's say, 100 numbers or 1,000 numbers or even more, a million numbers? Then manually writing print and all those numbers would take so much time. For these purposes, programmers invented loops. Loops repeat certain part of the codes until some criteria isn't met. There are two loops in Python. Some languages like C or C++ have three, but Python has only two. First one is for loop. For loop is used when we know the exact number of iterations, like in our case. We want to print first 10 numbers. The syntax for for looks like this. Write the keyword for, then write some variable name. I'll use I because I is very common when we use for. Then the keyword in, and then I'll use a function, range. I'll talk about functions in my next video. But until then, you'll need to know this little much. Range, open the parentheses, and have two arguments. One, the number from which we want to start, and then 10, the ending number. Then write the colon, which means we enter the for scope. I talked about scopes in my last video. The link to it is in the description below and in the upper right corner now, so feel free to check it. So now I can simply print I, and we expect to see numbers from 1 until 10. I'll comment this. But numbers are printed from 1 until 9. That's because when we type the start and the end, the ending number is excluded. So if we want 10, we have to type 11, 1 greater than 10, as you can see. The default step is 1, but we can change that. Also, important thing to notice is that numbers inside range have to be integers. They can't be float. I'll write comment here so I can explain this easier. Start, end, and step. As you can see, 1 is the start, 11 is the end, and if we don't specify the step, the default one is 1. So here I can write, for example, 2. Now the step is 2. It will go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. As you can see, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are printed. Also, we can omit some parts. For example, we can omit start. Why? Because start also has a default. The default start is 0. So when I write something like this, range, nothing, then 11, means this for loop will print numbers from 0 until 11, excluding the 11. As you can see, 0 until 10. Maybe you want to exclude start but include the step, and you'll print, for example, here, comma 2. But that won't work. Why? Because Python doesn't know what you mean. He would think, okay, you want 11 to be start and 2 to be end. And the default step is 1. So we will increase this and we'll have 11 plus 1, that's 12. That's greater than 2. So this means this for loop won't print anything, as you can see. But you can have negative steps, for example, minus 1. Then this code would work, as you can see. It prints numbers from 11 until 3. So important thing to notice is if you want to omit start, then you can't have step. You can only have a defaulting step. But if you want to have step, you have to write all 3 arguments. Also, for doesn't have to iterate through numerics, like in this case, integers. It can iterate through characters from a string literal. For example, for I in, I'll write a string literal, A, B, C, D, colon, then print I. So when we print this code, we see A, B, C, D are printed. I is first A, then it's printed. I then moves on to B, so then B is printed. Then I moves to C, then C is printed. Then I moves to D, then D is printed. That's how this code works. The second loop is while loop. While loop is used when we don't know the exact number of iterations, but we have to perform some operations in order to find that. For example, let's say I have a number 2, 3, 4, 5, and now I want to print all the digits 5, 4, 3, and 2. In order to do that, we use while loop. Syntax for while goes like this. We type the keyword while, then the condition, for example, x is greater than 0, and then colon, and enter the while loop. How to separate 5 from all these digits? In order to do that, we use operation that's called mod. I talked about this operation in my first video. The link to it will be in the description below and in the upper right corner now, so feel free to check it. For example, digit, I'll write this variable digit, then give it value x mod 10. Why 10? Because when I mod something with 10, it will give me numbers until 10, but excluding the 10. So those numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. With all these digits, I can write all numbers. If I simply print digit, this won't work. Why? Because I haven't reduced the x. So x will always be greater than 0. And this for loop would run infinitely, as you will see now. 5 is being printed infinitely. Now I have to reduce x somehow, but I want to reduce it so that it removes 5, then 4, then 3, then 2. In order to do that, I used another operation that's called a div. Div is a whole division. So when I write something like this, x div 10, this will divide this number by 10 and remove the remain. So when I divide this number by 10, the 5 is removed. But when I divide this number by 10, then 4 is removed, and so on and so forth. So when I run this code, now we will see what we want. 5, 4, 3, and 2 are printed. Programmers want to be efficient, and this line of code is write very often. So they want to write it in as little characters as possible, but also to be understanding. In order to do that, they made a shortcut. So we can write this code like this: x, then div, then equal, then 10. This is the same as x equals x div 10. This doesn't work only on div, it works on all operations. As you can see, the, the result is the same.
Nested loops.
Like nesting conditions, we can also nest loops. So, for example, I can write something like this: for I in range 1 until 5. Then here I can write another for loop for j in A, B, C, and D. And now print me I, comma j. Now we expect to see A, we expect to see 1, and then A, B, C, D. And then when this loop is finished, we enter this loop again. So it moves on from 1 to 2. Then we enter this loop and we finish this loop. So the most inner loop is finished first, then the last one. As you can see, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 2A, 2B, and so on and so forth. So the most inner loop is finished, then the next one, and the next one. Also, it doesn't have to be 4 inside a 4. It can be while inside a 4 or 4 inside a while. I'll write example for that also. For example, for I in range 1 until 4. Then you have a variable coin named y and give it value 1. Then while y is smaller than 3, print I comma y and increase y. As you can see here, 1 1 1 2 2 1 2 2 3 1 3 2. I hope you found this video helpful. Like and subscribe for more coding content. See you in my next video. Until then, keep coding.